I watched my wife pour me a drink. She smiled. I smiled back, because I already knew what she was trying to do. I've always been good at reading people. It's a skill you pick up when you grow up with a mother who could flip the room with a single look. My wife used to joke that I could sniff out a lie before someone even opened their mouth. She loved that about me. Until she didn't. We've been married 9 years. Lived in the same modern, sterile house she insisted on outside of Seattle. White walls, gray furniture, chrome fixtures. Even our dog's fur was color-coordinated. On the outside, we were the kind of couple people envied. We threw tasteful dinner parties. Traveled to Bali. She posted curated photos of our perfect life every week like it was her job. It wasn't her job. That was something else entirely. Something vague and remote-sounding. Business development lead at a firm that handled international something or others. I never asked for the specifics. She liked it that way. So did I. There's a quiet convenience in looking the other way when things start to smell off. Like when your wife suddenly starts wearing perfume to her 10 a.m. video calls. Or when she changes her phone passcode for the 3rd time in a month. Or when she stares at your mouth just a little too long after you take a sip of the wine she just poured you. But let's rewind a bit. 3 months ago, I started keeping a journal. Nothing fancy. Just bullet points in my phone. Things she said. Places she claimed she was. Little lies that didn't matter on their own, but when lined up side by side, painted a much darker picture. Like the way she flinched when I mentioned the name, Eric. A coworker she swore was gay. The same one who accidentally Venmo'd her $500 with a heart emoji. She laughed it off, said it was a joke. Office culture. You know how these tech guys are. I didn't, but I nodded anyway. 2 weeks after that, I found a half-used burner phone in the bottom drawer of her vanity. It was dead. I charged it while she was at yoga. There were only a few messages left. Most had been wiped, but not all. She called him Owl. He called her Storm. One message stood out. I'll do it, but it has to look like an accident. I don't want the police sniffing around. There was no name, no context, but I felt something in my chest shift, like ice cracking underfoot. I didn't confront her. Not yet. There are things a man does when he realizes he's sleeping next to someone who might be planning his death. He listens. He observes. And above all, he waits. The night it almost happened, it was subtle. Casual, even. We were having steak, her idea. She made it look effortless. Garlic butter, roasted potatoes, perfectly seared filet mignon. She even opened a good wine. The one we'd been saving for our anniversary. I watched her pour it into the glass. Mine first. Then hers. Her hand trembled. Just for a second. Maybe she thought I didn't notice. We toasted. She smiled too wide. Her eyes didn't match. To us, she said. I didn't drink. Instead, I reached for my water, claiming I needed to stay hydrated. She shrugged it off, but I saw the way her gaze flicked to my untouched wine glass again and again. Like it was a ticking bomb. Like she was waiting for something to detonate. Later that night, while she was in the shower, I took a sample of the wine and sealed it in a sterile bag I'd ordered online a week earlier. Paranoid? Maybe. But I'm still here. And she doesn't know that I know. She thinks I'm slipping. She's started planting seeds. Talking about how I've been forgetful lately. Mentioning how stressed I seem. Suggesting therapy. It's subtle gaslighting, but effective in the hands of someone who knows you intimately. She's setting up a narrative. In case something happens. In case I snap. But here's the thing. I'm not snapping. I'm waking up. And when I open my eyes fully, really fully, she won't be ready for what's coming next. The sample came back clean. No sedatives, no poisons, no trace of anything that didn't belong in a $100 bottle of Pinot Noir. I stared at the lab report like it owed me a confession. I'd sent it off under a fake name, paid extra for a rushed turnaround. The guy I used was a friend of a friend, someone who owed me from way back in college. He didn't ask questions, just gave me the facts. And the facts said I was wrong. At first, I couldn't process it. I reread the document over and over, hunting for technical terms I didn't understand, cross-referencing every chemical name against a list of common toxins. But there was nothing, not even a whisper of something off. It should have been a relief, but it wasn't, because I saw her. I saw the way she watched me that night. Not with love, not even with anger, with calculation, like I was part of an equation she was solving in real time. Every blink, every movement she made, it was precise, controlled. And when I didn't drink the wine, something flickered in her expression. Not disappointment, not guilt, just adjustment. So why the clean report? Why go through all the trouble if there was no poison? I obsessed over it. I barely slept. Started recording our conversations with a mic hidden in the ceiling vent. I installed a small camera behind a vent in the hallway, watching the entrance to the bedroom. Nothing incriminating. Not yet. But I wasn't ready to let it go. Not after the burner phone. Not after the text about making it look like an accident. So I changed tactics. If the poison didn't exist, maybe the plan hadn't been to kill me that night. Maybe it was a test. A trial run. A dress rehearsal for the real thing. I began reviewing everything that had happened in the weeks leading up to that dinner, looking for patterns, changes in routine. That's when I found something that sent a chill down my spine. A business card, buried in the bottom of our junk drawer. It was from a private investigator. Black matte finish, raised silver letters. No logo, just a name, A. Clark, and a phone number. It wasn't mine. I'd never seen it before. But I knew my wife's handwriting well enough to recognize the small note she'd scribbled on the back. Confirm mental instability. Look for triggers. Suddenly everything made sense, and none of it did. She was watching me, studying me, not just whether I'd drink the wine, but how I didn't drink it, whether I hesitated, whether I got suspicious, whether I showed my hand. I was being profiled, like a subject in a case study. And if she was trying to build a case that I was unstable, she'd just found her angle. A paranoid husband obsessing over a poison that didn't exist. Was she trying to get me institutionalized? Set me up as a danger to myself? Or was it just another layer of manipulation, making me think I was losing it, so I'd stop trusting my instincts? That night, I confronted her. Not directly. I wasn't that stupid. But I prodded. Asked about the wine. Told her it had tasted off, even though I'd never touched it. Watched her reaction like a hawk. She didn't flinch. "Oh," she said, completely unfazed. "I didn't notice anything. You always say that when you're stressed." She reached across the table, touched my hand. "You've been on edge lately. Maybe you should talk to someone." And there it was again. The seed, planted so gently you'd almost thank her for it. She didn't accuse me of being crazy. She offered it like a kindness. The worst kind of manipulation is the one that feels like love. After she went to bed, I dug deeper. Found the rest of the burner phone's messages. I'd missed them the first time. She'd set the phone to hide conversations under a second app, masked as a calculator. Once I got in, it was like reading a screenplay. Storm. He's getting colder. I think he knows something. Owl. Then be careful. You know what happens if he flips the script. Storm. He's smart. Too smart. I need to know exactly how much he suspects. Owl. Then press him. Watch his reactions. If he takes the bait, we adjust. They weren't trying to poison me. They were testing me. And I'd failed. Because now they knew I didn't trust her. And trust, real or not, was the last card I had left. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, staring at nothing, listening to the sound of her breathing down the hall. Calm, even, like someone who had nothing to worry about. She was winning, not because she'd outsmarted me, but because she knew what I hadn't been willing to admit. I still wanted her to love me, even after all of it. The lies, the messages, The performance. Some desperate part of me still hoped that maybe this was a misunderstanding, that I'd wake up and it would all make sense. But it did make sense. Just not the kind I wanted. She wasn't afraid of me. She wasn't trying to hide. She was testing for weakness. And now she knew where to find it. But here's the part she doesn't know. I've stopped looking for the truth. I've started planning for the end. It started with the small things. Misplaced keys. A forgotten appointment. A shirt I was sure I'd hung in the closet that somehow ended up crumpled in the laundry basket. "Babe, you've been so distracted lately," she said one morning, slipping her arms around me while I stared at the stove, unsure whether I'd already taken my meds. "You were like this a few years ago, too. Remember? When work was eating you alive." I didn't remember, but I nodded anyway, just to end the conversation. That was the first mistake, because after that, the game changed. She started bringing up things I supposedly said, but couldn't recall. Casual references to conversations I'd swear we never had. "You agreed to dinner with the Grants on Friday." "No, I didn't. I told you I have that late meeting." "You definitely did. You said, and I quote, 'Just remind me again the day before so I don't bail.'" I didn't say that. At least, I don't think I said that. But her tone was so confident, so calm. She never raised her voice, never acted offended. Just concerned. Patient. Like she was dealing with someone she cared deeply about who was slipping. And maybe I was. Maybe that's what terrified me the most. Because when someone starts trying to rewrite your memory, they don't have to scream. They just have to be consistent. They plant seeds until you don't know what's real and what's just believable. That night, I went to the garage to look for the wrench set I kept under the bench. It was gone. I checked every drawer, every shelf. Nothing. When I asked her about it, she blinked. "What wrench set?" "The silver one. In the red case. My dad gave it to me." She tilted her head. "You sold it years ago, remember? When we cleaned out the garage? You said it was too bulky, and you never used it." I didn't say that. That set meant something to me. But I couldn't prove it. And that's the point. You don't need to delete someone's memories to break them. You just need to replace them with better lies. I started writing everything down. Conversations. Locations. Times. What I wore, what she said, what I saw. Not because I was losing my mind, but because I needed something to anchor me to the version of reality that I still believed in. She found the notebook 3 days later. I came home from work to find it sitting on the kitchen table. Open. Marked. She was leaning against the counter, sipping tea like nothing was wrong. "What's this?" I didn't answer. She turned a page. October 2nd. She looked at my drink again. Still watching. Still calculating. I pretended not to notice. Her eyes flicked to mine. "You're writing about me like I'm some kind of criminal." "You read my journal?" "It was hidden under a pile of gym socks, Mark. Not exactly Fort Knox." She closed it gently. "Why are you doing this? What is going on with you?" I stayed quiet. Because anything I said would feed the narrative. That I was unstable. That I was paranoid. That I was unraveling. She stepped closer. Lowered her voice. "I think you're projecting. I know things haven't been easy between us, but this." She tapped the journal. "This isn't healthy." And then she hit me with the line I'll never forget. "Do you remember what happened after your dad died?" I froze. She knew exactly what she was doing. My father's death wasn't just a sore spot. It was the moment my grip on reality had slipped. Years ago. Grief blurred everything. I drank too much. Forgot appointments. Once I even drove to the grocery store and ended up parked outside a church 10 miles away. No memory of how I got there. She helped me through it. At least, that's what she always told me. But now I wondered how much of that narrative had been hers. How much of my past had already been rewritten. She sat down across from me, reached for my hand. Her voice softened. "You were like this before. You get scared, and then you isolate. You look for patterns where there aren't any. And I get it. I really do. but I'm worried about you. And that's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't just gaslighting me to protect herself. She believed the version of me she was creating. Or at least, she was trying to. I pulled my hand away. I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were. You're treating me like I am. No, she said, tilting her head slightly. I'm treating you like someone who's sick and doesn't want to be. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed next to her, listening to the soft rhythm of her breath, wondering if she was awake, wondering if she was smiling in the dark. The next morning, my phone wouldn't turn on. Dead. Not just low battery, dead. I checked the charger. Swapped cables. Nothing. I used her phone to call my work and let them know I'd be late. But when I opened the contacts, my boss's number was gone. Not just unlisted. Deleted. There was only one explanation, and it wasn't a technical glitch. She was isolating me. Digitally. Emotionally. Psychologically. And she was doing it so slowly, so methodically, that to anyone else, it would look like concern. Like love. But I knew what it really was. Control. She wanted me off balance. Uncertain. Dependent. The only question now was, why? What was the end game? I didn't have the answer yet. But I was done playing defense. If she wanted me to lose my grip on reality, she'd have to fight for it. Because I wasn't falling apart. I was digging in. And soon, I'd show her exactly what that meant. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of gray-skied Seattle morning that made everything feel like sleep paralysis, quiet, damp, heavy. I remember thinking it was strange she was making breakfast. She never made breakfast. Not unless we had guests. And we didn't have guests. We hadn't had guests in months. But there she was, standing barefoot in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like some Pinterest ad for domestic bliss. You're finally sleeping through the night, she said as I walked in. I thought I'd reward you. I watched her from the doorway. She looked perfect. A loose sweater, no makeup, hair tied back in the way I used to love. If you'd walked in without context, you'd think she was just a devoted wife trying to take care of her tired husband. But nothing was that simple anymore. I didn't trust the coffee. I didn't trust the syrup. I didn't even trust the goddamn pancakes. She plated them with practiced precision, patted my hand. Eat before it gets cold. And I did. That was the moment I failed myself. Because I thought it was a test, not the real thing. I told myself she wouldn't risk it yet. Not after pushing the gaslighting so far. Not after making me question my own memories, my own behavior, my own sanity. That was the strategy, wear me down. Blur the lines. Break me slowly. If she killed me now, the story wouldn't make sense. But maybe that was the point. It started with a pulse in my neck. Fast. Too fast. I felt it before I even finished the second bite. Then the nausea hit. A creeping heat in my gut, like I'd swallowed acid. I stood up too quickly. The room shifted sideways. My vision blurred at the edges, like ink bleeding through paper. She came around the table instantly, her face the perfect picture of alarm. Mark. I couldn't speak. My jaw felt locked. My limbs were cold. My brain was screaming, but my body wouldn't follow. Mark, what's wrong? Sit down, let me help you. I stumbled back from her, hit the counter, slid down to the floor. Everything went muffled, like I was underwater. My heart thundered in my ears. I remember her calling my name again. Then the sound of the front door unlocking. That's when I saw him, my best friend, Jamie, standing in the doorway, holding a six-pack and a look of absolute horror. He dropped everything. Ran to me. What the hell? What's happening? I don't know. She cried, hovering just close enough to appear concerned, just far enough to avoid being blamed. He said he felt dizzy and collapsed. I think it was something he ate. Jamie didn't hesitate. He scooped me off the floor like dead weight and got me into his car in under a minute. My vision was flashing black by then. My body refused to cooperate. My breath came in short, panicked bursts. I don't remember the drive. I remember waking up in the ER. Bright lights. Oxygen mask. Someone saying my name. Mark? Mark, can you hear me? I blinked. Jamie was standing at my side, gripping my hand. Hard. You're okay, man. You're safe. Just breathe. You're gonna be okay. The next voice I heard was a doctor's. Calm. Professional. Unconcerned. We were in a tox screen. There's a substance in your system, beta blockers in very high concentration. Your blood pressure tanked. You could have gone into cardiac arrest if he hadn't gotten you here so quickly. Beta blockers. Prescription medication. Common. Easy to obtain. Deadly in the wrong dosage. Jamie didn't say anything while the doctors worked. Just stood there like a sentry. Watching. Thinking. When we were finally alone, he leaned in. She did this, didn't she? I tried to shake my head, but I didn't have the strength. My body still felt like jelly. My heart was beating like it had just survived a hurricane. I don't know, I croaked. But I did know. And so did he. Jamie had never liked her. Not even in the beginning. He'd said it in the way only a best friend can, quietly, cautiously, like handing you a loaded gun and trusting you not to shoot yourself with it. You think she's too perfect, I remembered saying once, years ago. No, he'd replied. I think she's performing perfect. And one day, you'll see the difference. I saw it now. When she arrived at the hospital, she brought fresh clothes for me. Held my hand. Told every nurse who'd listened that she'd been terrified. That I'd been acting strange for weeks. That she feared I might have taken something on purpose. She said it loud enough to be overheard. Said it just enough times to give them a narrative. When the doctors questioned me, she stayed close, like an emotional anchor. Have you been under stress? Yes. Any history of mental health concerns? Not recently. Did you take anything you weren't prescribed? No, are you sure? I looked at her. She was already crying. I found him on the floor, she whispered. I thought he was dying. I didn't know what to do. They nodded. Believed her. Why wouldn't they? The records would show she called 911 moments after Jamie left with me. The kitchen was spotless. No food left out. Nothing that could be tested. She'd even called my office later to tell them I was sick and wouldn't be in for a few days. She was flawless. Every move thought out. Every detail covered. It didn't matter that she hadn't actually gotten me to the hospital. It mattered that she made sure she looked like she would have. Jamie didn't buy a word of it. We left the hospital 2 days later. He picked me up himself. Didn't even let her come along. Stay at my place, he said. Just for a few nights. I didn't argue. The first night I stayed with him, he slid a bottle across the table. Water. Sealed. I brought this from the store myself, he said. That's what my life had become. Everything boiled down to trust. And most of it was gone. But now, for the first time in weeks, I had someone in my corner. And that meant the game wasn't over. She tried to kill me. And almost got away with it. Now, she thinks she's won. But I'm still breathing. And I've finally stopped doubting what I see. She didn't expect me to survive. That much was obvious. The moment I moved out of the house and into Jamie's spare room, she stopped pretending to care. No calls to check on me. No teary voicemails. Not even a single message asking if I was okay. She vanished. Or maybe she just stopped performing. 2 weeks passed. Jamie kept a tight leash on me, took my phone at night, made sure I ate, drove me to every doctor's appointment. I didn't argue. He was the only reason I was still alive, and I knew it. I started therapy, but I didn't tell the therapist everything. How could I? There's no insurance code for my wife tried to kill me but made it look like I poisoned myself. Besides, it wasn't about feeling better. It was about gathering myself, piece by piece, for whatever came next. And something was coming. I could feel it. Jamie was the one who first noticed the change in her. It started with her routines. For a woman who lived and died by her calendar, she'd become erratic. Missing work. Canceling appointments. Forgetting to pay the lawn service. The house, once a showroom of minimalist perfection, started to look lived in. Sloppy. Curtains drawn during the day. Lights on at 3 a.m. Then came the car. Jamie called me on a Thursday. "Dude," he said, "I just drove past your house. There's a silver Lexus parked out front. Same one I saw last week. That yours?" "No," I said. "Her car's black." "Exactly." He went quiet for a moment. "I think someone's staying there." I felt the cold return to my spine. It made sense. She thought I was out of the picture, either by death or institutional collapse. And with the way she'd laid the groundwork, gaslighting, planting doubts, documenting my supposed instability, I wouldn't be surprised if she'd already told people we'd separated. Maybe even said I'd left her. She was rewriting the ending in real time. And she wasn't doing it alone. The next day, Jamie went back. I told him not to. "Just let it go," I said. "I'll deal with it when I'm ready." But Jamie never let things go. Not when it came to people he cared about. He didn't park out front. He parked a block away and waited. For hours. Called me twice. Then went silent. When he finally called again, his voice was tight. I saw him. My throat clenched. "Who?" "The guy. Tall. Sharp jaw. Real polished. Type that probably corrects people when they say espresso." "You talked to him?" "No. Just watched. He walked out of your house like he owned the place. Didn't even check if anyone saw him. She came out 5 minutes later in that robe you bought her last Christmas. The one with the deep red silk and the subtle embroidery on the sleeve. The one I'd never seen her wear twice." Jamie kept talking. "She kissed him in the driveway. Twice. No shame. Broad daylight. Like you never existed." I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. He sighed. "Mark, I don't know what the hell she's doing, but she's not even trying to hide it anymore." And that's when it hit me. She wanted to be seen. That was the shift. All that meticulous control, the caution, the mask, it was crumbling. Piece by piece. She wasn't playing the careful wife anymore. She was spiraling. Reckless. Emboldened by the idea that no one could touch her. Because as far as she was concerned, I was either crazy or already gone. Jamie offered to take photos. I told him no. Not yet. Not until I was sure what I was seeing. Instead, I asked him to keep watching. Just for a few days. And what he found next turned my stomach. The man, her lover, wasn't just visiting. He was living there now. Jamie watched him carry in boxes. Clothes. A laptop. Even a dog bed. A few nights later, he brought over a golden retriever, and the bastard let it piss on my hydrangeas like he owned the place. Every report Jamie gave me was like another nail in the coffin of whatever life I thought I had. She wasn't grieving. She wasn't scared. She was thriving. At least on the outside. But Jamie saw something else too. Cracks. On Monday morning, she screamed at the mailman. Full volume meltdown over a package being misdelivered. On Wednesday, she drove to a pharmacy at 2 a.m. and sat in the parking lot for an hour, just staring at the storefront. Then, Friday night, she stood outside the house in a thin nightgown, barefoot, muttering to herself. Jamie caught the whole thing from down the street. "She's coming undone," he said. "Whatever plan she had, it's unraveling." And that's when I remembered something she used to say. Back before all this. Back when we were still pretending to be happy. People only lie when they still need control. The really dangerous ones are the ones who stop lying. She wasn't lying anymore. Because she didn't care who saw. Not Jamie. Not the neighbors. Not me. And that made her more dangerous than ever. I sat alone that night in Jamie's guest room, staring at the ceiling, and let a single truth settle into my bones. She had moved on, but she hadn't let go. I was still part of her story. She was just rewriting my chapter without asking. And if I didn't do something soon, she'd make sure it ended on her terms. Permanently. She found out about Jamie on a Tuesday. I should have seen it coming. She was reckless, yes. Unhinged in quiet, precise ways. But she wasn't stupid. And when someone like her starts to feel the walls close in, they don't panic, they target. They isolate. They remove threats one by one, methodically, surgically. Jamie had been careful. He parked down the block, switched cars twice, never used his real name when he called in food deliveries to the house just to keep tabs on who answered the door. He was watching from a distance, staying clean. But distance doesn't matter when someone like her starts pulling threads. And Jamie, for all his loyalty, had one weakness. Me. It happened fast. Jamie didn't come home that night. I was on the couch waiting, scrolling through old photos, not of her, not anymore, but of us. Me and Jamie. College. First apartment. Road trips. Nights wasted playing poker and drinking cheap whiskey before life started weighing us both down. I was 2 hours deep into worry when my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered anyway. At first, there was silence. Then, Mark. His voice was shredded, breathless, shaking. Jamie. Yeah. Where are you? A pause. Then, quietly, she tried to kill me. I stood. My heart seized. What do you mean? What happened? She knew, he said. She knew, Mark. About me watching her. I don't know how, maybe the guy, maybe the neighbors, maybe she tracked my license plate. I don't know. She got into my car. It was like she was waiting. I couldn't breathe. I closed my eyes and leaned against the wall. She had a syringe, Mark. She didn't say anything at first. Just smiled, like it was a joke. Like it was a game. Then she lunged. I fought her off barely. She screamed at me. Called me a liar, a traitor. Said you told her everything. She thought you sent me. I got out. I don't even remember how. Where are you now? I ditched the car. I'm in a motel 2 towns over. Off the highway. Room 7. I'm okay. But, man, it was real. It wasn't a threat. She was going to do it. She tried. I didn't speak for a long time. Because what do you say when the monster you've been running from finally lashes out? Not at you. At the one person who still believed you. When Jamie hung up, I just sat in the dark. I don't remember for how long. At some point, I turned off all the lights. Sat by the window. Watched the shadows stretch across the street. Thought about all the times I'd let her get close. The mornings I'd woken up next to her. The nights I'd fallen asleep while she was still awake, watching me with those distant, calculating eyes. And I thought about how I'd convinced myself, over and over, that she wasn't capable of this. Even after the poison. Even after the burner phone. Even after Jamie. A part of me still didn't want to believe what she was. But that part died when she tried to kill my best friend. Not manipulate. Not threaten. Not gaslight. Kill. And she would've, if Jamie hadn't been faster. That's when the final, cold understanding settled into my bones. She wasn't unraveling. She wasn't reacting. She was removing obstacles. And I was the last one left. Everything she'd done, every lie, every test, every twisted smile and calm reassurance, it was all to maintain the narrative. Her narrative. The story where she was the composed, abandoned wife. The one with the new lover. The new life. The tragic past. But Jamie, he didn't fit. He wasn't part of her script. He saw her. And for that, she tried to erase him. That's what she does. She erases. She doesn't rage. She deletes. Quietly. Efficiently. Permanently. So I asked myself, if not Jamie, who next? Her lover? Her coworkers? A neighbor who saw something strange? How many people would it take before someone finally put the pieces together? I knew the answer. Too many. She was going to do it again. Maybe not right away. Maybe not with another syringe. But eventually she'd find another way. Another method. Another man to perform for until it bored her. Another friend who got too close. Another betrayal she couldn't tolerate. It wasn't about me anymore. It wasn't even about Jamie. It was about stopping her. Truly stopping her. Not with police reports she'd slip out from under. Not with therapy or distance or exposure. Those things work on the broken. But she wasn't broken. She was sharp, smooth, deadly. And the longer she moved through the world, untouched, the more certain I became of one thing. This wasn't a woman who lost control. This was a woman without control. A wolf pretending to be a house cat. And I was done waiting for her to bite again. Jamie wanted to fight. He wanted to take it to the police, tell them everything. But I stopped him. Not because he was wrong, but because it wouldn't work. I'd seen her cry on cue. I'd seen her flip the narrative mid-sentence. She knew the systems, the loopholes, the stories people like her used to get away clean. And worse, she believed them. So I made a choice. A quiet one. Final. I wouldn't let her hurt anyone else. I didn't care what it took. I didn't care what I had to burn. She wanted a final act? I'd give her one. But it would be mine, not hers. That night, I went to the old storage unit I hadn't opened in 3 years. The one that still had my father's tools, a few old journals, and the thick, padded lockbox with the manila envelopes I hoped I'd never have to open again. I took everything, and I wrote my own story. Not the kind you tell a jury. The kind you finish. One that ends before anyone else has to suffer. Before she finds another reason to test someone's loyalty. Before she rewrites one more version of herself. This story started with a poisoned glass. But it would end with a decision. My decision. To stop pretending she could be reasoned with. To stop hoping someone would save me. To stop waiting for justice that was never coming. Because justice? Justice wasn't real. But consequences? Those were. And I was done being her unfinished chapter. I said I'd end the story. And I did. But I never told you how. So now I'll ask you, what do you think I did to stop her? Let me know in the comments. And be honest, how far would you go to protect the world from someone like her? Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.